So welcome everybody. Yet another Tuesday class. You'll notice that tonight we are not hitting guns with hammers. So Scott's off yet for another week because he's, well, lazy. Tonight we got Lonny Wiseman, who's done a number of these classes for us where, he basically reviews the Stop the Bleed material. Use a tourniquet, use of some of the other stuff that might be in your individual first aid kit. And we thought we'd get back to basics and bring everybody back to that and give an opportunity for the folks that are actually live on the Zoom right now to ask questions and maybe even come on video and show what they're doing so that Lonny can provide feedback. If you have a tourniquet, get it out, put it next to you. You're going to want to at least stage it and see how to stage it. And if you have the rest of your IFAC, put that next to you as well. That's your individual first aid kit, so that if you want to go over the contents of it with Lonny, we can absolutely do that. We'll save most of the direct interaction until the end, so that if there is a bunch of stuff that people don't want to be on video for, we can cut it out. But by all means, get everything out, get it next to you. And I think right now, Lonny's going to start to tell us how to keep things from going really bad when you get a hole in yourself.
Oh, good evening. Thank you all for showing up. I'm going to go ahead and do my disclaimer again for those of you who didn't get it the first time. And that is this is not a certification. This is provided as information on Stop the Bleed. This is mainly about your personal use with yourself or your family. It is not, again, a certification. If you are interested, bleedingcontrol.org, stopthebleed.org. Those are two places where you can get more information about possible certification. I also believe the Red Cross is now doing a Stop the Bleed class. Thanks to Carl Cowan, who originally did this 2 years ago now at our annual meeting, and the American College of Surgeons, which this is their slide presentation. What we're going to cover tonight is basically Stop the Bleed. Later, I will demonstrate some other things that you may want to think about having in your IFAC, your individual first aid kit. But tonight is really just about massive bleed. So here we go. I will give you a heads up. There are a couple of slides in this that are actual slides of bodies that are damaged. So if you are a little squeamish and you don't like looking at meaty things, I will give you a heads up. And here we go. Come on. I love this. There we go. So again, the American College of Surgeons, Committee on Trauma, the American College of Emergency Physicians, the National Association of Emergency Medical Technicians, Committee on Tactical Combat Casualty Care. These are all organizations that have contributed to this presentation. And again, some of the images that are shown during this presentation may be disturbing to you. I will try and remember to give you a heads up. This is pretty obvious, but it's always good to remember this, that the #1 cause of preventable death after injury is bleeding. So this is one of the reasons why you want to do this training. And this kind of training is useful in lots of different places. It's useful at home, at work, at school, in your car, during natural disasters. And, for those of us who worry about getting shot either at the range or in other situations, this is always really good information to have. So your goal here is really just to identify and recognize life-threatening bleeding and the steps that you're going to have to take in order to stop bleeding. And not all major bleeding requires a tourniquet. So there's the idea of using direct pressure, packing the wound, and then as a last resort where you can, using a tourniquet. And again, don't risk yourself. Okay, don't put yourself in a position where your safety is in jeopardy in order for you to render aid. You always have to think about the fact that if something happens to you, not only is the person who's injured not going to get any help, but then there's nobody there to help you. So if the situation becomes unsafe, get out of there, move away. If you can, take your victim with you. If you can't, you did the best you could, and that's all you can ask. Yeah, wear gloves. But the important thing about bleeding and dealing with people's blood is that as long as your skin is intact, as long as you don't have any open wounds, contact with blood is not a major concern. Mucus contact, so if you get something in your mouth, if you get something in your eyes, that could be a problem. But bottom line is that as long as you're gloved, blood contact, unless you have an open wound on your skin, isn't something you need to worry about. If you do get blood on you, and once your help has arrived, let somebody know, and then follow those directions. So the ABCs of bleeding control are not the same ABCs that you learned in your first aid class. So this is alert 911, and then deal with bleeding, and then compression. So call 911. That's the first thing you want to do. You don't want to wait. You have some time, even in massive bleeding, you have some time to deal with that. If you're really good, there are a couple of things you want to know. One, calling 911 on your cell phone is good, but if you have the local emergency number for your local police department, that's a more direct way to get help. So the thing you want to do is have both of those, and put your phone on speaker and dial 911 and then get to work. Yeah, know your location. That's really important. And then follow the instructions that are provided by the operator. Bleeding. So first thing you want to do is you want to find where you're bleeding from. You also want to understand, is it continuous bleeding, large volume, is there pooling of blood? Each of these are an indication as to what type of care you may have to give. And yes, there may be multiple places where somebody is bleeding. And clothing always hides life-threatening bleeding. I mean, you may have somebody with their shirt that's soaked, but you have no idea where the wound is. Their pant leg may be soaked. Again, you don't know exactly where the wound is. So clothing needs to be dealt with. One of the reasons why you want to have a good pair of scissors in your IFAC. And believe me, no matter what you're going to do, their embarrassment won't be nearly as bad as if they die. So this is bleeding control. You have arms and legs. You have shoulders, groin, and neck. And then you have the body itself. And you may want to think about not looking at the next couple of slides. So this is what life-threatening bleeding can look like. So you'll notice on the picture of the shoulder that what you're seeing there is arterial flow, and that's the trail that's coming out. On the leg wound, what you're seeing is a massive laceration and fractures. Each of these would require a tourniquet. So the most frequent cause of preventable death from injury, right? So these are arm and leg wounds. Bleeding from these wounds can be controlled by direct pressure or a tourniquet. And again, we're going to talk about how, at what point in time do you give up on direct pressure and move to a tourniquet. So torso junctional wounds, neck, shoulder, and groin. This is direct pressure and wound packing only. You cannot use a tourniquet on these areas. And chest and abdominal injuries, front, back, side, usually cause internal bleeding. This bleeding cannot be stopped outside of a hospital. You can try direct pressure, it won't work. You can try wound packing, but generally you can't get close enough to where the wound is, where the bleeding actually is, to do anything that's going to be helpful. Your victims in this case are going to need rapid transfer to a trauma center. And if you're in a mass casualty event and you know you have people who have upper torso bleeding wounds that cannot be stopped, these are the people you want to notify the EMS providers as they arrive. This is trauma 101, right? This is triage 101, where those people who are most injured get treated first. Compression and pressure. So you're applying pressure directly to the wound, and you want to focus on the location of the bleeding only. You want to use just enough gauze or cloth to cover the injury, and if pressure stops the bleeding, keep the pressure on until help arrives. This is not something you need a tourniquet for unless you cannot control the bleeding. I'm going to go ahead and run this this video. Normally I don't, but no, I'm not going to. I'm just going to move on. I'll do a demonstration of wound packing and compression when we get done with the slideshow. So for large wounds, superficial pressure is generally not effective. And so you're gonna, if you're deep bleeding, then you're gonna pack you're gonna pack gauze. You're gonna use a wound packing device, and I'll show you a couple of things that you may want to think about having in your IFAC. And you want to hold the pressure until help arrives. So compression and packing, arms, legs. Again, the neck, groin, armpits. And the body, and again, I'm just going to tell you, you're not going to be able to wound pack a deep cavity wound. So these are a couple of the things that you might want to think about having in your IFAC. So hemostatic dressing materials are basically something that works with the natural clotting cascade of the body. There are a couple of things to think about. If you know the victim and you know they're on some kind of a blood thinner, things like quick clot will not work. They don't work effectively because their clotting cascade has been interfered with by medication. So there are a couple of things called Celox, Celox Rapid, Cheetoflex, and Cheeto Gauze. Those are materials that are made of highly refined shrimp, I believe it is, highly refined seafood shells. And for those of you who are worried about somebody who may have a seafood allergy, they are so highly refined that research has shown that it just doesn't cause a problem. So applying a tourniquet. So when you apply a tourniquet, you're going to apply it 2 to 3 inches above a wound. Do not place it over the elbow or the knee. You can't get pressure on any of the arteries on the bone like that. You want to tighten the tourniquet until bleeding stops, and do not remove the tourniquet. I know there are a lot of questions about, how long can you leave a tourniquet on? Is it going to hurt? Is it going to cause, loss of limbs? You can leave a tourniquet on for like hours and it will not cause permanent damage. So don't worry about, once you apply a tourniquet, never, ever, ever, ever release the pressure on the tourniquet until until the person's either at a trauma center and under the care of a doctor, or a doctor is on scene. And you may indeed require a second tourniquet to stop the bleeding if the first one does not. So these are the different types of tourniquets that are out there. I'm going to demonstrate the CAT tourniquet and the SAM XT. And personally, I love the SAM XT, and you'll be able to see why when we do the demonstration with it. So a tourniquet consists of a windlass rod, a windlass clip, and a windlass strap, and a buckle with a single pass. And this is pretty uniform for all tourniquets. There may be some variations, and I'll show you the soft TT wide, which is a little different than the others that I will show you tonight. So these are what we call non-pneumatic limb tourniquets. Don't even think about pneumatic ones. They're really expensive. And it's not worth it for you to have it as part of your IFAC. So you have the CAT tourniquet, the combat application Gen 6, Gen 7. You have a ratcheting medical tourniquet, what's called the RMT. And I generally don't use that. The SAM extremity tourniquet, SAM XT, which I will demonstrate tonight, the soft tactical tourniquet wide, soft TT wide. And I also have, I'm not going to demo it tonight. I also have a tactical mechanical tourniquet, but it's really not recommended. That's not something I would encourage you to put in your IFAC. And then these are the pneumatic tourniquets. If you guys have a few $100s and you really want to do this, go ahead. But it's really not something you're going to need. This is something that you'd normally see carried on a paramedic or an EMT wagon. So bleeding control in children, in all but extremely young children, the same tourniquet is used as is used for adults. For an infant or a small child, tourniquet too big, so direct pressure on the wound is generally what will work in almost all cases. For large, deep wounds, wound packing can be performed in children just as it is in adults for the same technique as described previously. And again, even in a small child, you're not going to be able to wound pack the chest cavity or the abdomen. And then these are the things you want to do for yourself once you're done. After medical responders arrive, if you have any blood on you, you want to make sure you wash with soap and water, remove all the blood, notify the people, the responders of possible exposure. And there's really minimal communicable disease risk for exposures involving intact skin. Okay, so I'm going to stop my screen share here. And this is a little strange. Normally I'm up in the room, but it's a little difficult. So these are the tourniquets, and this is the cat right here. It's the cat. This is a Gen 6, I believe it is. This is the soft TT wide, and this is the SAM XT. So those are the three tourniquets I will be demonstrating. Also tonight, I've come across a couple of things that I'm really going to recommend that people keep either in their in-home first aid kit for sure, and would not be bad to have it on your individual first aid kit. This little thing is a finger tourniquet, and it's incredibly good. If you have a really, really bad finger bleed and you need to dress it out, this thing will immediately stop bleeding in any of your digits. And I'm going to demonstrate how this is done. It's a one-use thing, though. So once I take this out of the package and I show how it gets done, that's pretty much it.
Hey, Lonny, the other people have their tourniquets handy?
Yeah, they might want to do that. I'm going to do a couple other things before we get to the tourniquet. I'm going to demonstrate a couple of different things that they're going to do. I'm also going to demonstrate some wound packing. So we have some time yet. And many of you are familiar with steri strips. They're used as a wound closure, but there is a new thing out that I really, really like called the Micromens. And it is a metal reinforced kind of steri strip, and it really works well. And I will demonstrate that. And this is what it looks like. And then again, this is the Combat Quick Clot. This is the Celox Rapid. Okay. And I think that's pretty much, oh, and I'm going to demonstrate using an Israeli bandage, and this one's been rather sorely used, so it's not going to look nearly as good as one that you're going to pull out of a package. And then, what did I do with them? There they are. For chest cavities, through and throughs in particular, this is the hyphen vent, and I'll talk some more about that in a little bit. So the first thing I want to do is I want to demonstrate how one packs a wound. And because I don't have the kind of money that most organizations have for buying the body style packing material, I just took a good old pool noodle, which I say if you want to practice is a great thing to do. This would be kind of what you would get in the quick clot. The difference will be the quick clot that actually is real will have a blue stripe on it. So what I usually do when I'm packing a wound is I start by just getting my fingers wrapped so that I'm going to go ahead and push this in with my fingers. And then once I do that, I'm going to keep pushing, and I'm going to keep pushing, and I'm going to keep pushing. And eventually you're going to get to the point where you cannot get any more material in. Then what you can do, and this is if direct pressure has not been working, you can take the rest of the quick clot material and use it for direct pressure. So that's basically how you wound pack. I'm also going to show you, because I get this question all the time, what happens if you are impaled? How do you deal with somebody who has an impalement? So there is a through and through impalement. You do not, I repeat, you do not want to remove this. What you want to do is stabilize it. So you're going to take some gauze and you're going to secure the gauze, and then you're just
Bring that
going
down
to,
a little in frame, boss. There you go.
how's that?
That's better.
You're just going to wrap this so that you are securing the impaled object so that it's held in place. And then you're going to tie that off and leave it as is. Generally, you don't have to worry about bleeding with impaling because this is actually acting like a plug. And so you will get some wound seepage, but you're not, even if it hits a major vessel, or if this were in your arm or in your leg, if it happened to hit an artery, chances are you're still not going to get a whole lot of bleeding because this is going to be a plug in the vein or the artery. Okay? Are there any questions so far?
There are not.
Okay. So the thing I want to say is, again, I should have done this before I started, but you want to glove up.
So there was one question about the impalement on cutting the impaling object to make it shorter, to make it easier to transport the person that's been impaled.
It depends. It really, really, really depends. Unless you have the kind of tools that you need to cut it without it being pulled, yanked, or anything else, I would not recommend doing that. Mainly because it's just anything that you do to move that around can potentially cause greater damage to the patient. So we glove up. There we go. So that's basically what you're going to do with wound packing, direct pressure, and all that. And I'm going to shift the camera a little bit, back myself out. Hopefully you can all see this leg.
Yep. See the leg in frame?
I'll tell you what, I'll use this one. It's easier.
Yeah, use the other one. That's better.
So this is an Israeli bandage. When you take this out, the internal pad is sterile. You're going to put that on the wound directly, and you're going to put this little plastic clamp directly over the wound.
Quick thing, Lonnie, that light that's coming through the window.
It's not the window. It's probably the one behind me.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. Perfect.
So you're going to take that. You're going to put that out. You're going to press down on that. You're going to run this out. And this is a little bit of elastic. So you're going to pull it tight. You run it through that little clip right there. Then you take it right back the other way. Get it as tight as you can. You're going to counter wrap it. And you want to keep it fairly tight so there's good pressure. And then you're going to finish this and you're going to hook it into the Band-Aid. Now, the nice thing about an Israeli bandage, if you do not have a tourniquet, you can use this. It's not the most effective one, but it can double over as a tourniquet. The way you'll do that is you lift a bit of the material, you take that clamp through it, and that becomes your windlass. And you're going to just tighten that and keep tightening it and keep tightening it until the blood flow diminishes. And like I said, it is not a great tourniquet, but it will work if you absolutely have to. And then once you
So
get
Lonny, here's
point,
a related question.
Sure.
If you're packed with hemostatic gauze and using an Israeli bandage to keep pressure, the pad goes directly on the wound, and then you just have to put it over any excess gauze, correct?
Right.
Okay.
So then what you're going to do is you're going to secure this. You can either secure it in the material itself, or you can tape it in place. And that is how you would use it if you were going to use it as a tourniquet. Otherwise, you just get it as tight as you can for direct pressure and go ahead and this is going to clasp both sides of the Israeli bandage. And again, this one's been rather sorely used because I didn't want to keep opening up brand new Israeli bandages to do this. And that's the Israeli bandage. These are really nice to have, and they make them in very different sizes. There is one for through and through. It is a pad on both sides. It's a really large bandage, and you can get that. They're not terribly expensive, but they're not really cheap either. I do recommend having a couple of the small ones in your IFAC. Cool. So that's the Israeli bandage. Now, tourniquet time. So if you have your tourniquet, get it out. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate the one that I really like.
And quick note on if you have your tourniquet, if you bought it on Amazon for $15, go ahead and use it.
And then throw it away.
And then keep it for a training tourniquet because it ain't going to be good enough. And he'll put some links into the we'll put some links into the description.
Yeah, actually
later.
I can
to make sure that folks get real good equipment. But you're going to want one for training so that you can do this. And if you don't have one for training, you use your best judgment whether or not you're going to use it tonight. But you should do it at least once to yourself. Sorry, Lonny.
Oh, that's okay. So I am going to demonstrate on myself how to apply a tourniquet. So generally, if you can, you just slide it over. And again, you want to be 1 to 2 inches above the wound. And the thing I'm going to tell you is that this is not the best way to pull on this. What you want to do is you want it the other way around. You want to come from underneath. And the reason you want to come from underneath is because you can pull a lot tighter this way than you can this way. Do you hear that click? That tells me that I'm locked in. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to twist the windlass. The angle on this is not the best. But I do that. And by the way, folks, this is going to hurt. I'm going to readjust this. There we go.
Would it be common for you to have to readjust this unless you're really practiced?
Generally, yeah. This is one of the reasons you want to practice on yourself first. Okay, so I'm locked in. Now I'm going to go ahead and twist this. And you keep twisting, and it's going to hurt, folks. Do it yourself so you know what it feels like. You keep twisting until you lose the pulse. And you can do that just by feeling for the radial pulse, and my pulse is gone. Now, once you're done with that, you're going to bring this over and there's a little tab here. You're going to fix that, and on that tab, you're going to write the time that this was applied. Okay.
Bring that up into the screen.
There you go.
Before you pass out.
Oh, I won't pass out.
I know it's a joke. So that implies that you're going to have a marker in your IFAC.
Yes. And that's basically how you apply a tourniquet.
And you can leave that on.
Oh, you can leave it on for a long time. I could sit here and do the rest of this evening with this on, and it would not cause, other than the fact that it's not very comfortable, it would not cause any serious harm.
Would your arm turn blue?
No, it shouldn't. My fingertips will probably get a little white from the lack of flow. And that's another way you can actually check to see whether or not you've stopped blood flow, is you want to see whether or not you've reduced capillary flow.
So I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead. I know that the boys and girls that are managing this are keeping questions, but how long do you have to get this shit done? Pardon my French.
You have roughly 3 minutes. And here's the thing, it's going to hurt. So, you know, if your patient really argues with you a lot, wait a little bit, they're going to pass out.
Is that arterial flow or is that any bleeding?
It's well, if you're going to use a tourniquet, it's because you have massive blood. So it's basically only in the case of a tourniquet are you going to get anybody to argue with you about the pain, because these things really hurt, folks. I don't know if you can see it, but I've already got a pretty good little welt.
Yeah, you got a pressure bruise there. So
just from putting it on.
The specific question was how long do you have to get that done? And I think the conventional wisdom is about 3 minutes.
About 3 minutes. You'll bleed
if
out.
If I recall from Carl's presentation in California 2 years ago, like if they are really sort of arguing with you about it, wait 20 or 30 seconds, and then the patient will be no longer.
They will pass out. So that's tourniquet. That's wound packing. And now I'm gonna introduce this little baby. I'm gonna go ahead and deglove because I want to use this on myself, and it's a little easier for you to see that. So this charming little thing.
Hammer down. There you go.
This charming little thing is a finger tourniquet, and I'm going to send one of these to Scott because he seems to do a pretty good job on his fingers. So anyway, this is going to hurt whoever you're doing this to, because there's no nice way to put this thing on. You're going to put your finger, you're going to put their finger through the hole.
And there you go.
Right. And you're going to take it down there like that. And believe it or not, that right there is enough pressure to stop bleeding. And you can't really tell, but if you could see the difference in the color right now, this finger has gotten much, much paler than the other fingers on my hand. And that's because I've literally just stopped the bleeding.
Hold it up in the frame with your palm forward. So I think, I can see that. I can see.
You see the difference in the color?
I can even see that on your crappy camera. Yeah.
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 So that's what you do for finger bleeds. And then the only way to get this off, because you don't want to pull it back over the wound, is you have to cut it. And again, a good reason to have a nice pair of bandage shears.
Let me ask a stupid question, Lonnie.
Yeah.
Do since you're just using this for training and you're not actually bleeding, could you just pull that back off?
I could have, but I prefer to show how it actually gets taken off.
All right, there you go.
And that's it. You just cut your way through it, comes off, and blood flow comes back to your finger.
Now you're pink.
And then the other thing I want to demonstrate is these lovely little babies, because they are so cool.
Do you want to rotate the camera down towards your desk, or are you going to do it from the?
I'm gonna rotate it down. So this is a different kind of steri-strip for wound closure. So you take it off, you put it one tab on one side of the wound, you pull it tight, get it down there tight, you pull it tight, and you notice how it just grabs the wound and seals it up. And you're going to leave that on for about, I think they tell you somewhere right around 6 to 10 days. And it works just like a suture.
Can you try holding it a little closer to your chest? Yeah, the camera sharpens up a little bit when you pull it away.
So you can kind of see it. And it looks, it's basically got, you can't really see, it's got these little metal reinforcements in there. And that's basically how it works. And these are really, really cool. They're not that expensive. It comes with a little sterile gauze pad. So for cleaning things up. It's just a really nice little thing to have in your IFAC.
Hey, Lonny, could you repeat the name of the strip and the name of the finger tourniquet by any chance?
Sure. So it is called Micromend.
And
that comes through very clearly.
We'll do a blog post. We'll put all these links in there.
And then this is T-ring. Digit. This is digit tourniquet.
Is there one more those stair strips in there? Can you on your wound pool noodle? That might be easier to see.
Yeah, it might be hard to do on the pool noodle because of the material.
Got it. All right. I was looking.
And I didn't really feel like cutting myself to demonstrate how it actually works.
That's why I was suggesting the pool noodle.
So anyway, that's pretty much all there is to this. I think Danny has her IFAC, and she was willing to share that. The hyphen vent. Sorry about that. I almost forgot. So these lovely little things called the hyphen vent. This is what you use when you have a through and through in the chest cavity or the abdomen, and especially, it's really meant for the chest cavity. So what happens sometimes when you have a wound that hits the chest cavity and the lungs is you have, not only do you have the bleeding, but you also have the air movement, and you really want to avoid a tension pneumothorax, right? So where pressure builds up underneath the skin against the lungs, it inhibits breathing, and it makes it even worse. So these lovely little things are really good because it seals the wound front and back. You have one on each side, and it vents. So air that's coming out is allowed to come out. So it actually has a little vent in it, and it burps the air out. So these are also really good to have in your IFAC, especially for those of us who worry about bullet wounds and bullet entry and exit. And the other question I always get asked is, how long can this stuff last before you have to replace it? And so this was packaged in January 6th of 2020, and it is best replaced on March 31st, 2025. So just to give you an idea how long, and most of the stuff that you're going to have, so like the quick clot, again, the quick clot is good until February 28th on this one, till 2025. And the Celox, I'm trying to find where it is on this one. I don't see it really easily on this one. But most of these will last 3 to 5 years, so you don't have to worry about replacing them right away.
Is there any use case where you would want non-vented seals?
No. because the problem is air gets caught. If you have a puncture in the lung, that air's got to go someplace. And if it doesn't go any place, and the wound is generally not going to be the place it's going to go, you're going to build up pressure in against the lungs, and you're going to actually inhibit breathing, and that is not a good thing. So I have never found a reason to not have venting. I know when I was in the service, one of the things they said was, well, you have a sucking chest wound, take a piece of plastic and put it over it. And yeah, that's fine. When I was a medic in the field, if that were really the thing that I had to do it. But it isn't something I would recommend, especially now that we have really good stuff out there that will deal with all the problems that quote sucking chest wounds had. Anything else?
Do we want to? We can kill the live stream and we can open it up to live questions.
Yep.
There's one more question.
Sure.
One more question. Sorry.
No problem. The pneumothorax needles. Anything to say on those? Yeah,
unless you're qualified, you're going to violate the Good Samaritan Act if you use it on anybody but yourself.
Well, in California, certainly.
Yeah, definitely in California. The thing you really want to do in all cases where you potentially may be administering first aid to somebody else other than yourself is you really want to check to see what your Good Samaritan laws are for your individual states. So I know here in California, because I'm no longer certified as a medic, I can no longer go any further than the surface of the skin. So in theory, I would still wound pack, but that's because I'm not actually opening the skin. It's already open for me. And I'd much rather, in this case, beg forgiveness than ask permission.
No needles.
No needles. In my IFAC, I carry a nasal airway, but it's not something I would use unless I absolutely had to. I also carry a suture kit, but again, it's not something I would use unless I were in the outback. And I was the only person who was able to provide the needed help that an injured person might have, or for myself. And like I said, I have worked on myself in the past, and so I carry certain things that I would not necessarily use on somebody else. Yeah, I shouldn't be looking at the chat, but you're right, Karen. Most of us are in. Most of us are not far from help, but I've done a lot of backcountry backpacking, and a lot of us are hunters. And so there is a chance that, if you're out in the middle of nowhere, even though there's a lot of cell coverage out there these days, chances are, if you're way out in the outback, you're not gonna have a chance. Why don't you pin Danny so that she can show them her IFAC?
Yeah, before I do that, I was going to say, as with the other stuff that we talk about on this channel, this shouldn't be the last training you seek.
No.
So there's lots of things that we can do. I believe even Karen has taken the wilderness survival classes where they go over really specific things on what you do when you've fallen off a mountain and impaled yourself on a stick. So I'm going to go ahead and pin Danny so that you guys, I'm just going to add her to the spotlight. That should do it.
Okay.
And then now she needs to speak. Everybody see her sit? There you go.
Hi, everybody. So after watching Stop the Bleed at our annual meeting that we did virtually in August, I bought this one because Lonny recommended it. It's from mymedic.com. And the club's not endorsing anything. We'll name places that we suggest you look at, but it's up to you to decide what's best for you. I chose this one because I don't have a lot of first aid experience, and it seemed like a good starter. Mine is the advanced version. This is the MyMedic MyFAK FAK, and I got the advanced version because it had more stuff. This is $240, but I will tell you that if you sign up for their website, they often have sales, and I think I got like mine on Black Friday for 30 or 50% off or something. They also have BOGOs pretty often. And mine is pretty stock the way it came. I haven't taken anything out of it, and I haven't had to use it. I like it because it's got the MOLLE straps, so you can put it on everything. It also comes in red, black, khaki, yellow, and green. And I picked the red because my range bag is black, and I wanted it to be quick and easy to find if needed. So it's got a Velcro top and then zippers, and it folds open, and it's not as well organized as the one that Adam linked from Amazon. But I think if you take the time to go through it, hopefully you'll learn where things are. And maybe if you're not bleeding out, be able to explain to somebody where to find things. And I picked the advanced one because it came with like quick clot, and it has the stock tourniquet in it, but those are not recommended by Lonny.
Yeah, it's called a rat's tourniquet, and I do not recommend it.
So I also have a cat. Lonny, I was going to ask you, the rat's tourniquet, would that be good if, like you were saying earlier, sometimes you need to put on a second one?
I would not. I threw my rats away.
Okay.
But that's me. I in the past, rats were the things that happened, and cat came out, and so the cat tourniquets are a much better tourniquet for a lot of reasons. They're much easier to self-apply.
Lonny, your camera's staring at your ceiling one.
There we go.
So anyway, I haven't had to use this, and I hope I never have to, but I feel very comfortable having it in my range bag. I also bought both sizes of the Israeli bandages, and they come very well shrink wrapped in these packages. Don't open them until you're ready to use them. And then my big thing, and a lot of you have probably heard this story, is I get burned a lot. So I have since stocked up on various kinds of burn gel because that has been my biggest experience at the range is getting burns that make me have to sit out for an hour or so. So I have various kinds of burn gel. I got all of this from MyMedic. And I've since ordered like some other things from them, like hiking supplies and blister control and moleskin and more burn gel. So I know Kyle has bought from North American Rescue. So I just wanted to show a basic one. We recommend that everybody have something better than a box of Band-Aid in their range bag.
So I also... Thank you, James. You just reminded me that you want to unpackage your tourniquet.
But Danny, just take it out right now and do it.
You want to unpackage your tourniquet. When you unpackage your tourniquet, the way you're going to stage this thing is you're going to run the buckle. You're going to run it through the buckle. Then you're going to take the running end, and you're going to place it right at the top where the windlass time strap is. You're going to fold it back on itself over the top, and where the windlass strap is, you're going to run it behind the windlass strap and seal it.
All right. So look at what Danny's doing, Lonny, and
so
give her some advice.
Okay, let's do this together, Danny.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. So you've got it through the buckle, right? Take it all the way until it's just the length of the tourniquet body itself. Now, take the tab at the end, the little red tab at the end.
Other end.
The other end, down there. and bring it all the way back to the top against the Velcro.
There you go.
Okay. Then you're going to take it again and fold it again to the length of the tourniquet. No, you want to have a little tail end over it. So you're going to bring it. You're going to bring it like this.
Camera down, Lonnie, or put the tourniquet up in the frame. There you go.
You're going to bring it like this, right? So here's your little red tab. You're going to bring this right up to the end of the buckle. Fold it over. And you're going to take that little time strap, this little time strap, cross it over the top of that, and now you've got a staged tourniquet.
I'd make one suggestion generally. Don't, when that first time where you sort of, you open it up, you put it through the buckle, don't make it so tight that you can't get your fingers in there to open it up because you're going to need to put this around an arm or leg. So you want to
Danny,
little
I think
bit of play.
you have a little bit too much slop in your loop. It really needs to be tied up against the buckle.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay,
Like what Lonnie
work on
saw on
it.
the screen.
Ed, we're
Okay, is
focused
there
on
any
you
more
now.
questions while I do this? So we don't have to sit and watch me fumble. Does anyone have a hand raised?
We have a question. Did you say you prefer the Sam XT over the Cat?
I
And
do.
if so, can you say more about it, please?
Yeah, I like this because it gives you a positive lock when you've reached your absolute maximum torque on the pull. And it's probably, in terms of its overall use, I found it to be a lot easier to use. It doesn't, having these little holes and that automatic locking mechanism in the clip where these two, there are two little blocks that come out when you get to the point where there's enough torsion to release them. And then the release of those is really easy because all you have to do is lift up on the back of this tab and those two blocks pop back in. So all in all, I find this to be, for most people, a super easy tourniquet to use.
How does that compare size-wise, like for packing? Roughly the same as a
Yeah,
Cat?
there it is. Here's the Cat. And I would just, the only thing I would do is when I normally stage this windlass is pulled in. But you'll notice that they're pretty much the same.
I had an interesting question just DM to me, Lonnie. Originally, certain feminine products were designed to stop blood, right?
Yeah,
To
don't
stop
do
bleeding. Don't do it. There's
Nope.
better alternatives now. Okay.
Yeah. So the bottom line is you really, those don't work with the natural clotting process. When we talk about it in terms of feminine hygiene, you're not at a major bleed. It's and the reality is that there's roughly a tablespoon of blood in a menstrual cycle. It's mostly just fluid where it's washing away the eggs that weren't fertilized. So
I think Carl said, don't use tampons. Don't think
Right.
about tampons. Just don't do it.
don't do it. They don't work the way you'd need them to work to actually do anything for wound packing.
If they did, I think they'd be really, really, really even less comfortable than they currently are.
So yeah, I would stick with the known clotting materials that are out there, and just having those available is really the best thing you can do. And having both, having the Celox and and the quick clot. And Celox comes in both a material and in beads. So you can actually get them as a powder. There used to be, the military for a while used some interesting stuff, but it turns out that the little beads that they used, sometimes would actually find their way into the artery or the blood system itself, and then later it created a bigger problem. So they actually stopped using it probably the last 4 years ago, I think, is when the Army stopped using supplying medics with that material. So anyway, Kyle, just to give you a shot, this is the XT, and it's staged almost identical to the cat.
Excellent. Thanks.
And the other one is a soft XT, and the advantage of the soft XT, I'll just kind of go through this. One, it's really hard to stage because there's no Velcro. The advantage of the soft XT, and one of the reasons I like the XT, is because it also has a metal windlass. And the real advantage to the soft XT, what they used to say is it has a metal windlass, and it also has a device that clamps the windlass into place. But again, it's great for self-application if this is what you want to use. It's a pain to stage because there's no easy way to do that except for to fold it up and put a rubber band around it.
And the one I have in the LGC ankle kit is a soft XT, and it came with a rubber band around it.
Yep.
So, I can put that on the screen if you want.
And I think I put in the chat earlier on a link to Rescue Essentials, which is another alternative to MyMedic and the other major supplier. The thing I like about Rescue Essentials is they're usually a couple of bucks cheaper in their tourniquet world. Not much. I think the XT cost almost $30.
I think conventional wisdom is you're going to spend $30 on a tourniquet.
Yeah. If you're spending less than $30 on a tourniquet, if you're going to Amazon and you're finding something for $15, use it for a trainer. That's what it's good for. Do not take it with you in your IFAC and expect it to do its job. They will literally fall apart as you apply the kind of pressure you're going to need to stop bleeding.
So the LGC store does have an ankle rig that can be pre-populated, but we have been out of stock for a while. And some of that is because our supplier for the ankle rig is Italian, and the Italians have had some problems with COVID. I'll put it up on the screen. I'll turn the lights on there so you can see it. So this wraps around your ankle, and it comes with most of the things that Lonnie's talked about. So you've got your tourniquet, you got a hemostatic bandage, you got some regular gauze and wound packing bandages, you got your chest seals, and some scissors. Also in this is a little black permanent marker, and there's a flashlight and some other little miscellaneous things. This is designed to be worn around the ankle. So if you were ever one of those people that were worried about whether or not you looked like you were carrying a gun, this looks like you're carrying a gun on your ankle every day, but it's not a gun. Interesting also, things that are about these kinds of kits, they're completely legal to take on airplanes, even with the scissors, because they are, demonstrated first aid kits. And if you do take a Stop the Bleed class, you can at least bring that certificate with you and say, I took a Stop the Bleed class. This is a trauma kit. But you can get through airport security with this stuff because it's meant to help people. So another interesting thing with this, but the IFAC kit that Danny showed is more extensive than the one that we sell on the site.
Yeah.
But this is like the bare minimum.
The thing I will tell you is I have the IFAC kit that I take to the range with me, which is my larger trauma kit. I also have a kit in my car, and I carry on my motorcycle. I have another kit. So I have a kit for every vehicle that I'm in. And then there's also, besides the trauma kit that I take to the range, I have a first aid kit here in my house. So you can't have too many, folks.
And one of the folks in the chat said what I just said. Any shears? What is it? Let me make sure I read it.
I think it's under 4 inches.
Under 4 inches. 4 inches or less from
Yeah.
the fulcrum. It means that you can carry them. But all these safety shears absolutely qualify. Any TSA agent gives you guff unless you're really in a hurry. Ask for a manager. But you can have this stuff with you when you travel. And that's the advantage of it, right? So once you know how to use it, once you're trained to use it, you can take it with you and be, helpful.
So any other questions, Kyle? Danny?
The only other question I believe is who wants to volunteer to turn on their camera and get feedback or ask questions.
Well, before we do that, if we want to wrap things up, we can kill the stream and kill the recording and everything, and then let people do that. Unless there are other questions we want to have on camera, I'm going to go ahead and do all that. Lonny, thank you so much. Danny,
You're
what
welcome.
about next week?